wonderful song that thought I'd put past his way. Put back the old along with the new. The new doesn't seem to be very good these days, but we'll make it what it is, ladies and gentlemen, and we will speak the truth. Regardless of what happens, we will speak the truth at Freedom Fighters for America World Radio at www.freedomfightersforamerica.com. Again, it's very important to put this information out there, alert other citizens, people that are being targeted, that there is information where people can go and get help for themselves by associating with others that are having the same type of situation. Can be certainly a help to help inform other targets about what they're going through and giving them a hand. Just give them a hand. That's all we can ask you to do. Give your fellow friends and associates the heads up and what's going on out there. We're really under a serious scenario. I want to talk a little bit more about how they murdered a president. JFK, as most of you already know, has been murdered probably by some of the same people who have moved towards this socio-fascist government that we're looking at today. And it's very important to realize that anything pretty much that the government is telling us at this particular point in time is a lie. So if you have children out there who intend on going to the military, I do suggest that you have very, very long talks to them about what they're actually fighting for these days, and it's not really the type of situation that people are, fighting against, and fighting for the freedom of the United States when our so-called stewards of government are leading us to this destruction. So here we go.
Where they had targeted thousands and thousands of people for investigation based on no violation of the law. The fact that the United States government of America would call in two mafia people to help us eliminate some guy illegally got murdered because we disagreed with him is the kind of thing we were confronted with almost across the board during this investigation. The major part of what we covered was activities against American citizens in this country. And it was very extensive and beyond what most people even realize today. Yes, I think we were all surprised by the magnitude and the depth of what we saw. If I can just say this, we need a strong FBI, we need a strong CIA and an NSA. We have enemies, we have to deal with them, and every one of us wanted to make certain when we got done that part was not compromised and indeed enhanced. But I was chairman of the domestic task force, and we were looking at agencies that dealt domestically, not just the FBI, but the Army and many other agencies that become involved in one way or another. And when we got into the records, and ours was the only committee probably that's ever looked at a complete, unprotected files of the Bureau and these other agencies with virtually no restrictions on its file, sending staff and experts into those files. And when they started coming back, I remember once he said, "I can't believe what I read today." And he'd gotten into CONTROL.TI, where they had targeted thousands and thousands of people for investigation based on no violation of the law, just hunches and suspicions, where they were tracking down Martin Luther King, who had committed no crimes, but they were tapping him, they were covering him, and they were on his case all the time, and they were trying to dismantle him as a leader of the civil rights movement. And there have been, we're going to a lot of other things, I'm sure, before the night is over. But the fact that this could happen in America, this nation of law and accountability, and happened over so many years. Presidents of both political parties were involved in this. It was a bipartisan thing, and there was a lot of this that the agencies had to explain that were the result, directly or indirectly, overreaching by the intelligence community and improper guidance by presidents all the way from Franklin Roosevelt to Richard Nixon. Many people thought when we started it would just be more that Nixon was a bad person, and there was plenty of that was uncovered. But Roosevelt started it off by loose language in authorizing the FBI, and all of the others did things that were bad. Another thing I think that's important about the Church Committee is it asked the right questions, and I think the two fundamental questions were, should America adopt the tactics of the enemy? It's a question of today also. But that was a real issue, and we concluded it shouldn't, but there had been a great deal of adopting those tactics by our secret government. And the other major question was, should the American people be allowed to know what the facts are? And the whole, our work was entirely devoted to helping the American people know what the facts are. And the final thing in the sort of this opening, the Church Committee, as both of you said, it's important to have a strong FBI and a strong CIA. The question is, what are they going to do? And taking the FBI, Roosevelt started them off in the wrong direction by asking them to investigate subversion, a word that has no content and has no limits. And subversion was the excuse of investigating and attempting to destroy Martin Luther King, for example. Well, in our final reports, we said what the FBI should be doing is looking at espionage and terrorism, and there we were a little ahead of the times, looking at espionage and terrorism instead of subversion. We now have Tyson in place, the law you referred to, for 25 years. I think almost many attorneys general, many FBI directors, many CIA directors said that these laws worked very well. They were able to do what they wanted to do. The argument behind getting the warrant was not to hold back law enforcement officers from doing what had to be done, but making certain there was a judge there just to be sure they didn't go beyond what was legal and right and appropriate. And because of the history we had seen.
And just to put a stop on this video for a second, is this exactly what they're doing right now? They've incorporated the Patriot Act. They've incorporated all these laws to give forth and bring forth these types of situations where American citizens no longer have rights, no longer have rights of privacy, no longer have rights of security, and no longer have rights of justice. We'll continue.